These are the two engine technologies that defined a century of power equipment, and the 2025 fuel crisis just settled the debate in the most brutal way possible. Vintage two-strokes are humiliating modern four-stroke machines in the one test that actually matters, your wallet. The small engine industry killed two-stroke production and forced everyone toward four-stroke technology, saying it was about emissions, about efficiency, about progress. But right now, with fuel costs crushing budgets and four-stroke repair bills hitting four figures for minor issues, those old two-stroke engines are doing something remarkable. They are still running, still cheap, and still making the experts look foolish. How much money are four-stroke owners actually losing compared to two-stroke operators, and why did manufacturers work so hard to eliminate the simpler, cheaper technology? Stick around, because this goes deeper than engine design, and it is costing people serious money. Right now, before we dig into why 2025 is proving everyone wrong about two-strokes, we need to establish what actually separates these engines. And no, it is not just about mixing oil with gas versus having a separate oil reservoir. A two-stroke engine completes its power cycle in two piston movements, up and down, with intake, compression, combustion, and exhaust all happening in one revolution of the crankshaft. Four-stroke engines take four piston movements to complete the same cycle, requiring two full crankshaft revolutions, and that mechanical difference creates massive real-world implications. Two-strokes are mechanically simpler in ways that matter. No valves, no camshafts, no timing chains or belts, no separate lubrication system, and the entire engine can have less than half the moving parts of an equivalent four-stroke. This is not about primitive technology, it is about engineering efficiency, because every part you do not have cannot break, does not need maintenance, and does not add weight or cost. Four-strokes are mechanically complex in comparison. They need valve trains, camshafts, timing systems, separate oil reservoirs, oil pumps, and significantly more precision machining, and this complexity got sold as sophistication, as advancement. Complexity has a price though, and it is not just the sticker price. The power delivery is completely different too, with a two-stroke firing once per revolution, while a four-stroke fires once every two revolutions. This means a two-stroke produces more power pulses per minute, giving you more power from a smaller, lighter engine, and a 50cc two-stroke can match or exceed the power of a 100cc four-stroke while weighing significantly less. For decades, this simplicity got branded as crude. The industry convinced consumers that complex meant better, that more parts meant more refined, that four-stroke technology was simply more advanced, and millions of people believed it, spending thousands more on equipment that promised superior performance. But here is what they did not tell you. Simplicity is not a weakness when fuel costs spike and parts become expensive. Simplicity becomes the ultimate advantage. Let's talk about what is actually happening right now in 2025, because fuel prices have stabilized at levels that would have seemed impossible just 5 years ago. Premium gasoline is consistently above $5 per gallon in most markets, regular is pushing $4.50, and there is no indication prices are dropping long-term. This is not a temporary spike. The fuel landscape has fundamentally changed, and whether it is production constraints, geopolitical issues, or refining capacity problems, the cheap fuel era is over. That changes everything about engine economics. Here is the math that is making four-stroke owners nervous right now. A typical four-stroke lawnmower or small equipment engine gets roughly 25 to 30% better fuel economy than an equivalent two-stroke, and that is the number manufacturers advertised. That is what sold millions of units. Fuel economy only matters in context, though. If you are running a chainsaw for 2 hours per month, the difference between 0.3 gallons and 0.4 gallons is negligible even at $5 per gallon, and you are talking about 50 cents. Over a year, maybe $6. Now, factor in what four-stroke ownership actually costs. Oil changes every 25 to 50 hours, air filter replacements, spark plug changes that require removing shrouds and covers, valve adjustments every 100 hours that most people cannot do themselves, requiring shop visits at $80 to $120 minimum. Timing belt or chain replacements on larger engines make the complexity that supposedly made these engines superior become a maintenance nightmare. A two-stroke needs fuel, two-stroke oil mixed at 50-to-1 ratio, and an occasional spark plug, and that is it. No oil changes because there is no separate oil system, no valve adjustments because there are no valves, no timing components to replace. The annual maintenance cost difference is not marginal, it is massive. People are doing the actual math now, and it is not working out the way the industry promised. That $6 in fuel savings is getting eaten by $60 in additional maintenance, and that is if nothing breaks. Let's talk about what happens when these engines need repairs, because this is where four-stroke ownership becomes genuinely expensive in ways that catch people off guard. A two-stroke engine failure typically involves the piston, rings, or cylinder, and these are catastrophic-sounding failures, but here is the reality. A top-end rebuild kit for most small two-stroke engines costs $30 to $60. The cylinder head comes off with 4 to 6 bolts. You pull the piston, replace the rings or the whole piston. Assembly, reinstall, and you are running again. Total time for someone with basic mechanical skills is 2 to 3 hours, and total cost if you pay a shop is $150 to $250, including parts. A four-stroke engine failure can involve valves, camshafts, timing chains, oil pumps, connecting rods, or dozens of other components, and because these engines are more complex, diagnosis takes longer, parts cost more, and labor hours multiply fast. Valve jobs on small four-stroke engines start at $300 and can easily exceed $500. Timing chain replacement runs similar costs, and a seized engine from oil starvation, which happens when owners do not keep up with oil changes or when oil pumps fail, can total the entire machine. Repair costs exceed the replacement value of the equipment. Here is what is happening in 2025 across the country. Repair shops are backed up with four-stroke equipment, and owners who bought premium four-stroke mowers, chainsaws, and trimmers 5 to 7 years ago are facing repair estimates that make them question why they did not just keep their old two-strokes running. Those old two-strokes are still running though. The ones that are not often need nothing more than a carburetor cleaning and fresh fuel, and parts are cheap because the designs are simple. There are no proprietary electronic components, no specialized tools required, no dealer-only procedures. The used market is reflecting this reality in surprising ways. Clean vintage two-stroke chainsaws from the 1980s and 90s are selling for prices that would have seemed absurd 5 years ago, and a well-maintained Stihl or Husqvarna two-stroke saw from 30 years ago can fetch $200 to $400. Meanwhile, four-stroke equipment from 5 years ago is worth less than half its original price because potential buyers know the maintenance costs coming. Let's dig deeper into the fuel efficiency claims that sold an entire generation on four-stroke technology, because the numbers do not tell the story manufacturers wanted you to believe. Yes, a four-stroke engine is more thermally efficient and extracts more energy from each combustion event. In laboratory conditions, running at optimal RPM under consistent load, four strokes achieve measurably better fuel economy, and this is factual, it is physics, and it is what every marketing campaign emphasized. Laboratory conditions are not real-world conditions, though. That is where the fuel efficiency argument falls apart. Small equipment does not run at consistent load in actual use. A lawnmower alternates between thick grass, thin grass, and no-load operation when you're turning around. A chainsaw goes from full throttle cutting to idle between cuts. A trimmer constantly varies between heavy weeds and light grass. This variable load operation is where two strokes actually show surprising efficiency. A two-stroke engine reaches operating temperature almost instantly and does not have the parasitic losses of a valve train and oil pump. When you start a two-stroke chainsaw and make a cut 30 seconds later, you are at full efficiency immediately, but a four-stroke needs minutes to reach optimal operating temperature, meaning the first several cuts are happening with reduced efficiency. For equipment that runs intermittently, this matters enormously. If you are making 20 cuts throughout the day, that cold start inefficiency adds up, and the claimed fuel economy advantage shrinks or disappears entirely in real-world use. There is another factor nobody talks about, and that is power-to-weight ratio. Because two strokes produce more power per displacement, you can use a smaller engine to accomplish the same work, and a 45cc two-stroke chainsaw can match a 65cc four-stroke in cutting performance while consuming less total fuel because the engine is physically smaller. The industry compared equivalent displacement engines, showing that a 50cc four-stroke used less fuel than a 50cc two-stroke. What they did not do was compare equivalent power output, which would have shown the two-stroke using a smaller displacement to achieve the same result, often with similar or better overall fuel consumption. In 2025, with fuel prices elevated and people actually calculating real-world costs, these facts are becoming impossible to ignore. The fuel economy advantage that justified the four-stroke transition is revealing itself as far smaller than advertised, and in many applications, it is not an advantage at all. If two strokes are simpler, cheaper to maintain, and competitive on fuel economy in real-world use, why did manufacturers work so hard to eliminate them? The answer has nothing to do with making better products and everything to do with business models. EPA emissions regulations in the late 1990s and early 2000s created the perfect excuse. Two-stroke engines do produce more unburned hydrocarbons in their exhaust because the intake and exhaust ports are both open simultaneously during part of the cycle, allowing some fuel-air mixture to pass through unburned. This is factual, it is a genuine environmental concern, and it gave manufacturers the regulatory cover they needed. But here is what happened next, and this is where it gets interesting. Instead of developing cleaner two-stroke technology, which was absolutely possible and was being done in other markets, US manufacturers pivoted entirely to four-stroke engines. They stopped research on two-stroke improvements, discontinued two-stroke models, and told consumers that four-stroke was the only path forward. Why though? Four-stroke engines are better for business. They require more parts, more frequent service, more specialized knowledge, and they create dependencies on dealer networks and certified technicians. They have shorter service lives before major rebuilds and generate ongoing revenue through parts and service that simple two-stroke engines never did. A homeowner with a two-stroke chainsaw might run it for 20 years with minimal maintenance, buying nothing but spark plugs and mix oil, and that is terrible for business. A homeowner with a four-stroke chainsaw needs regular oil changes, air filters, valve adjustments, and faces higher likelihood of needing professional service. That is a revenue stream. The commercial market tells the real story though. Professional loggers, arborists, and land clearing operations never fully embraced four-stroke chainsaws and stuck with two strokes because downtime costs money and simplicity means reliability. Stihl, Husqvarna, and Echo all maintained professional-grade two-stroke lines even while pushing four-stroke technology to homeowners. The marine industry provides another example that proves the point. Outboard motor manufacturers developed ultra-clean two-stroke direct injection technology that meets or exceeds four-stroke emission standards while maintaining two-stroke simplicity, and Evinrude E-Tech engines prove that two-stroke technology can be clean, efficient, and modern. This technology was never brought to small equipment though, because there was no profit incentive to do so. In 2025, this calculated obsolescence is becoming obvious. People who kept vintage two-stroke equipment running are spending less money and getting equal or better results than those who upgraded to modern four-stroke machines. The emperor has no clothes, and the fuel crisis is making everyone look. Let's look at what professional operators actually use, because people who make money with equipment do not buy marketing, they buy results. Professional loggers overwhelmingly run two-stroke chainsaws: Stihl MS 462, Husqvarna 572 XP, Echo CS 7310, and these are all two-stroke engines. Why? Because when you are cutting timber for 10 hours a day, you need power, reliability, and field serviceability, and a two-stroke delivers all three. A professional logger can rebuild a two-stroke saw in the woods with basic tools, and you can try that with a four-stroke. Professional landscaping crews tell the same story across the board. Walk any commercial lawn care operation and count the equipment, and you will find two-stroke trimmers, two-stroke blowers, two-stroke edgers. These tools run 8 to 12 hours daily in harsh conditions, getting dropped, filled with dirt, operated in extreme heat, and the ones that survive are almost exclusively two-stroke designs. Marine applications provide even more evidence of what actually works. Commercial fishermen, charter boat operations, and professional guides overwhelmingly choose two-stroke outboards for smaller boats, and Yamaha, Mercury, and others still produce two-stroke outboards specifically for commercial use because these engines deliver reliability that four strokes cannot match in demanding conditions. The pattern is clear across every industry. Professional operators who depend on equipment for income choose two strokes, while homeowners who mow once a week were sold four strokes. This is not coincidence, it is economics, because professionals cannot afford downtime and maintenance costs. They choose the technology that actually works best, not the technology that marketing departments promote. In 2025, as homeowners face the reality of four-stroke ownership costs, many are making the same calculations professionals made decades ago. The used two-stroke market is reflecting this shift, and equipment that was considered obsolete 5 years ago is now commanding premium prices because people finally understand its value. Let's talk about something that does not show up in fuel economy comparisons or initial purchase prices, and that is the time cost of ownership. Time is money, even if you are doing the work yourself. A four-stroke lawnmower requires an oil change every 25 to 50 hours of operation, and for most homeowners, that is once or twice per season. Each oil change requires draining old oil, disposing of it properly, replacing the oil filter on models that have them, adding new oil, and ensuring proper fill level, and time required is 30 to 45 minutes per change if you are efficient. A two-stroke equivalent requires adding two-stroke oil to your fuel mix at a 50-to-1 ratio. Time required is 30 seconds when you fill your gas can. A four-stroke chainsaw needs valve adjustments every 100 hours or annually, whichever comes first, and most homeowners cannot do this themselves. Shop visits mean dropping off the saw, waiting for service, and pickup with minimum time investment of 2 hours and cost of $80 to $120. A two-stroke chainsaw needs nothing except fuel and an occasional spark. Plug change that takes 3 minutes. Air filters on four-stroke engines need regular cleaning or replacement, and the procedure requires removing covers, accessing the filter housing, cleaning or replacing the element, and reassembling. Time is 15 to 20 minutes, and frequency is every 25 hours or monthly. Two-stroke air filters exist, but they are simpler, more accessible, and on many models can be cleaned in under 5 minutes without tools. Multiply these time investments across a season, then across years of ownership, and the difference becomes substantial in ways most people never calculated. A homeowner maintaining four-stroke equipment spends hours per year on maintenance tasks that simply do not exist with two-stroke equivalents. For someone who values their time at even minimum wage levels, this time cost adds $50 to $100 per year in effective expense. For someone with professional-level time value, it is significantly more. This time, tax is invisible in purchase decisions but becomes painfully obvious after a few seasons of ownership. In 2025, as people reassess their equipment choices, this hidden cost is becoming part of the calculation. Here is something happening right now that is catching four-stroke owners by surprise, and that is parts are becoming difficult to source, and when you can find them, they are expensive. Modern four-stroke small engines use increasingly specialized components. Overhead cam assemblies, electronic ignition modules, proprietary carburetors with anti-tamper features, emissions-related sensors, and these parts are model-specific, year-specific, and often available only through dealer networks. When a 5-year-old four-stroke mower needs a camshaft, you might wait weeks for the part to arrive, and when it does, you are paying full retail because there is no aftermarket competition. The manufacturer has you locked in. Two-stroke engines use generic parts across decades of production in ways that save owners money. A piston and ring set for a 1985 Steel 044 chainsaw fits dozens of models and is available from multiple suppliers. Carburetors are mechanical, rebuildable, and have been unchanged in basic design for 40 years, and ignition modules are simple and interchangeable across model ranges. The aftermarket for two-stroke parts is massive because the designs are standardized and non-proprietary. You can buy a top-end rebuild kit for a vintage two-stroke chainsaw from 6 different suppliers, delivered in 2 days at half the price of OEM parts. This parts availability difference is becoming critical as equipment ages. A 10-year-old four-stroke mower might be unrepairable simply because the specific camshaft or electronic module is no longer manufactured, but a 10-year-old two-stroke trimmer uses the same parts as a 30-year-old model, and those parts are readily available. In 2025, this is creating a weird inversion in the used equipment market that nobody predicted. Newer four-stroke equipment is losing value faster than older two-stroke equipment because of parts availability concerns, and buyers recognize that a vintage two-stroke saw with parts support is a better bet than a 7-year-old four-stroke model that might become a parts orphan. The 2025 fuel situation did not create new problems, it exposed existing ones. The economics of four-stroke ownership were always questionable for intermittent use applications, and high fuel prices just made the math impossible to ignore. When fuel was $2 per gallon, the 30% fuel economy advantage of a four-stroke might save you $20 per year on a lawnmower, and that savings seemed meaningful, enough to justify the higher purchase price and maintenance costs. It was close enough that marketing could tip the decision. At $5 per gallon, that same fuel savings is $50 per year, but the maintenance costs did not scale with fuel prices. Oil changes still cost the same, valve adjustments still cost the same, parts still cost the same, and now you are saving $50 on fuel while spending $200 on extra maintenance. The math does not work anymore. The fuel crisis also revealed something about power equipment use patterns that manufacturers never wanted consumers to think about. Most homeowners severely overestimate how much they use their equipment, and industry surveys show the average homeowner lawnmower runs less than 30 hours per year. The average homeowner chainsaw runs less than 5 hours per year. At these use levels, fuel consumption is almost irrelevant to total cost of ownership. A chainsaw that uses 0.2 gallons per year versus 0.3 gallons per year is a 50-cent difference, but the complexity difference between engines is a $100 difference in maintenance and a $1,000 difference if something breaks. People are finally seeing this clearly. The fuel crisis forced everyone to examine their actual costs, and for many four-stroke owners, the examination was not pleasant. Let's address the elephant in the room, because were not two-strokes eliminated because they were environmental disasters? Was not the four-stroke transition about cleaning up emissions? Yes and no. Two-stroke engines do produce more unburned hydrocarbons, and in the 1990s, this was a genuine environmental concern. The solution implemented in the United States was not the only solution available, though, and it might not have been the best solution. European and Asian manufacturers developed stratified scavenging technology that dramatically reduced two-stroke emissions while maintaining the engine's simplicity and advantages. Style's 4-mix technology created a two-stroke that met four-stroke emission standards, and Dolmer and others developed similar systems. These engines proved that clean two-strokes were technically feasible. In the US, manufacturers pivoted to four-strokes instead, and why? Four-strokes created better business models, as we discussed earlier, and the environmental argument provided perfect cover for a decision that was primarily economic. Here is where it gets interesting, though. Four-stroke engines have their own environmental issues that nobody talks about, and used motor oil from millions of small four-stroke engines needs disposal. Most homeowners pour it into containers and either take it to collection centers or dispose of it improperly, and this represents millions of gallons of used oil entering the waste stream annually. Two-stroke oil burns in the combustion chamber and does not create waste oil requiring disposal. Yes, some exits through the exhaust, but modern synthetic two-stroke oils are biodegradable and far less problematic than conventional wisdom suggests. Manufacturing complexity creates environmental costs too. Four-stroke engines require more materials, more machining, more energy to produce, and their shorter service lives mean more frequent replacement, more units in landfills, more total manufacturing impact. When you account for total lifecycle environmental impact, including manufacturing, operation, maintenance, and disposal, the advantage of four-strokes over modern two-strokes is much smaller than initial emissions testing suggested. In 2025, some environmental advocates are actually questioning whether the four-stroke mandate was good policy. Simpler, longer-lasting two-stroke equipment might have been more sustainable overall than complex four-stroke machines that need replacement every 7 to 10 years. Walk into any equipment repair shop right now and ask what they are seeing. The answer is consistent across the country: backlog on four-stroke repairs, quick turnaround on two-stroke work, and increasing requests for vintage two-stroke equipment. Online forums and social media groups dedicated to outdoor power equipment are showing a clear shift in sentiment. Posts from 5 years ago debated whether to upgrade from two-stroke to four-stroke, but posts from 2025 ask where to find good used two-stroke equipment and how to maintain vintage machines. The used equipment market tells the story in dollars that cannot be argued with. A clean style 044 chainsaw from the 1980s sells for $400 to $600, and that is a 40-year-old tool commanding prices near or above its original inflation-adjusted cost. A 5-year-old four-stroke mower sells for 30% of its original price. Professional operators are being proven right in ways that must feel satisfying. The technology they never abandoned is now being recognized by homeowners as superior for real-world applications, and the simplicity that was called primitive is now called smart. The designs that were called obsolete are now called proven. There is a quiet satisfaction in the vintage two-stroke community right now. These are people who never believed the marketing, who kept maintaining equipment their neighbors said was worthless, who understood that simpler is often better, and they are not saying "I told you so" loudly, but they do not have to. The fuel crisis and repair costs are doing the talking. Manufacturers are noticing too, and several companies are quietly reintroducing two-stroke options or maintaining two-stroke lines they had planned to discontinue. Hajil never fully abandoned two-strokes. Echo maintained their professional two-stroke lineup, and Husqvarna kept producing two-stroke saws even while pushing four-stroke mowers. These companies understood something the marketing departments did not, and that is superior technology does not need planned obsolescence to succeed. Two-strokes were always the better choice for many applications, and it just took a fuel crisis to make everyone else realize it. The 2025 fuel crisis did not prove that two-strokes are perfect engines with no drawbacks. It proved that the four-stroke transition was driven more by profit motives than technical superiority, and that marketing convinced people to spend more money for solutions that were not actually better. Two-stroke engines have real advantages that were always there: mechanical simplicity, lower maintenance requirements, better power-to-weight ratios, field serviceability, parts availability, and lower total cost of ownership for intermittent use applications, and these advantages were always present. People just stopped believing they mattered. Four-stroke engines have real advantages too, including better fuel economy under ideal conditions, quieter operation, and cleaner exhaust emissions in stock form. For some applications and users, these advantages justify the complexity and cost, but for most homeowners and many professionals, they do not. The lesson here is not that everyone should abandon four-stroke equipment and search for vintage two-strokes. The lesson is that simpler is not worse, newer is not automatically better, and marketing claims need to be examined against real-world costs and conditions. If you are maintaining vintage two-stroke equipment, this is your vindication right now. Keep doing what you are doing because those obsolete machines are proving their worth every time someone else gets a repair estimate for their modern four-stroke. If you are considering equipment purchases, do the actual math. Calculate real-world fuel consumption, not manufacturer claims, factor in maintenance time and costs, consider parts availability, and think about how long you want the equipment to last. The answer might surprise you. If you are a four-stroke owner frustrated by costs, you are not alone, and you are not wrong. The economics of four-stroke ownership for small equipment never made sense for most homeowners, and it took elevated fuel prices to make this obvious, but the underlying truth was always there. The 2025 fuel crisis revealed what professional operators knew all along. For most power equipment applications, the engine that was supposedly obsolete 30 years ago is still the smarter choice, not because it is perfect, but because it is honest. It does exactly what it is supposed to do, without complexity, without expensive maintenance, without proprietary parts, and without the ongoing costs that turn a $300 purchase into a $1,000 ownership experience. That is not nostalgia talking. That is math, physics, and real-world experience, and right now, it is costing four-stroke owners real money while proving vintage two-stroke owners right.